Tiptoe around with face of a stranger. Quiet observer, never get too close. I see the world, but it's through this window. Another side to see, I'm ready to know. Not every story's written on a sleeve. Some stories take digging deep. Eyes wide open, words unspoken. Where are you going, darling? Where have you been? Stories to tell, emotions we felt, good and the bad in the hands we've been dealt. I wanna know why, I wanna know why you're the way you are. He's from the city, she's from the south. Two different chapters told miles out. Their back row living in his White House. So many stories that I need to know. Not every story's written on a sleeve. Some stories take digging deep. Eyes wide open, words unspoken. Where are you going, darling? Where have you been? Stories to tell, emotions we felt, good and the bad in the hands we've been dealt. I wanna know why, I wanna know why you're the way you are. So many stories right in front of me. Some people climb to heights I've never seen. Too many falling down off their feet. These stories take digging deep. Eyes wide open, words unspoken. Where are you going, darling? Where have you been? Stories to tell, emotions we felt, good and the bad in the hands we've been dealt. I wanna know why, I wanna know why you're the way you are. Why you're the way you are. Why you're the way you are. Tiptoe around with face of a stranger. Quiet observer, never get too close. I see the world, but it's through this window. Another side to see, I'm ready to know. Not every story's written on a sleeve. Some stories take digging deep. Eyes wide open, words unspoken. Where are you going, darling? Where have you been? Stories to tell, emotions we felt, good and the bad in the hands we've been dealt. I wanna know why, I wanna know why you're the way you are. He's from the city, she's from the south. Two different chapters told miles out. Their back row living in his White House. in front of me. Some people climb to heights I've never seen. Too many falling down off their feet. These stories take digging deep. Eyes wide open, words unspoken. Where are you going, darling? Where have you been? Stories to tell, emotions we felt, good and the bad in the hands we've been dealt. I wanna know why, I wanna know why you're the way you are. Why you're the way you are. Why you're the way you are. Tiptoe around with face of a stranger. Quiet observer, never get too close. I see the world, but it's through this window. Another side to see, I'm ready to know. Not every story's written on a sleeve. Some stories take digging deep. Eyes wide open, words unspoken. Where are you going, darling? Where have you been? Stories to tell, emotions we felt, good and the bad in the hands we've been dealt. I wanna know why, I wanna know why you're the way you are. He's from the city, she's from the south. Two different chapters told miles out. Their back row living in his White House. So many stories that I need to know. Not every story's written on a sleeve.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Silverline's Wednesday Night Wham, hosted by Scott Wakefield. I'm a little sinusy, so it's not as enthusiastic today.
It was perfect. Thank you, Tim TK. Yes, I am Scott Wakefield. I'm your humble host tonight for this band of misfits. And it is Wednesday, so that means Wednesday Wham, and you are right where you should be. And we are thankful for you joining us tonight. Before we get started, I need to mention that tonight's show is brought to all of you by the Daytona Beach Comic Book Convention happening September 18th and 19th. We ask that you go over to their website and all their socials. Click like, follow, share, all those good things, and make sure you support them because they support us, and we are very thankful. So thank you, Daytona Beach Comic Book Convention. And we have a new sponsor for our shows. We are sponsored by HistoryCamp.org. HistoryCamp is a project of the nonprofit project from the pursuit of history. They offer weekly interviews with history authors, which can be viewed every Thursday on their website, historycamp.org. And mark your calendars, on July 10th, they will be hosting History Camp America, which is an online full-day history conference for history lovers from across the country. Sign up for their emails, learn more about the weekly interviews, and everything History Camp America has to offer at historycamp.org. Thank you to them. They are a new sponsor. We're honored to have them, and they're specifically hopping on board because of Steam Patriots coming soon from Kickstarter, and we have another World War II story, and I'm going to roll right into that and let Tim introduce himself, and we'll go down the line. On my screen, I got Tim, then Dean. Now, I can't see Haley, so you guys are going to have to give me a thumbs up or something when she's talking, and then Tommy. So, Tim, go ahead and say hello. Tell us what you're working on.
Hi, I'm Tim TK. I am the associate editor at Silverline. I'm also the writer and creator of Wolf Hunter, which is a World War II espionage action style book. And you can also catch me on Twitch at AgroBacon, where I was streaming Magic the Gathering right before we started today.
Very cool. Thanks, sir. Dean, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Dean Zachary. I'm the writer-creator of Silver Blade, a Victorian-era action-adventure upcoming from Silverline, my creative home. And I'm very pleased to be here with my Silverline cohorts tonight. And I can't wait for things to get cranked up and see where we end up flying off the rails.
As if, right.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. Okay. All right, Dean, that's just silliness. I'm gonna pass it off to Haley, and I do not know what I'm doing wrong, but I can neither see nor hear Haley. I can see what she's doing. So Haley, go ahead, and then someone tell me when she's done talking.
Hopefully you can see and hear me. I am doing all the art for an upcoming Silverline title called Bear, and I also have my own webcomic that I write and draw called Heroic Shenanigans.
Okay.
You're good. Thank you, Haley. I think maybe when we get the ball rolling, I will bounce out for a minute, see if I can switch to the app and see if that changes anything. All right. And then...
Are you in your browser?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why. It's
Okay.
not. It's not great in browser. It's better on the app.
Okay. All right. Then I will do that once we start talking about our topic tonight, and I will let everybody know. They're just gonna have to wait to find out.
I see what you're gonna do. You're gonna get out of the thing, and then you're just gonna leave. I see.
Gonna go to bed.
That's right.
He's gonna go into bed. He's gonna run away.
You know, I gotta switch apps, so I'll be back in until next week.
Technical difficulties. Sorry, everybody. All right, Tommy, say hello. Tell them who you are and what you do.
My name is Thomas Florimonte Jr. I've been working in the comic industry since the early 90s, mostly inking, but I do everything, including coloring, penciling, not a whole lot of penciling, but my own stuff, but publishing. I own a printing company that we may have heard of before called Kablam Digital Printing, the #1 comic book printing company in the world. Yeah. But currently for Silverline, I'm inking several projects. We'll get back to the Trump's book at some point here to finish it up. But I'm inking a book called Rejects, and then I'm also doing with Dean on the Silverblade book, which I'll be working on one of the pages for that tonight. Yes. And then I'm also working on the Silverline team-up book featuring Champion and Miss Fury. That's penciled by Mr. Peter Clinton and Roberta Conroy over on the Sunday show. She's coloring. She's doing a beautiful. Well, they both are doing a fabulous job, but her colors are great. I don't think we've got anybody picked for the coloring of the Silverblade stuff yet, right?
Not yet.
Not yet. We're working on that. Well, we got to get a bunch of it done, and then we can get working on it. And then I do a bunch of other projects. You know, I'm working with my longtime buddy Barry Gregory over at Gallant, working on some stuff there, and then Stephen Butler. I got a project going with him, and just a little bits of things here and there and everywhere. And then I do my own stuff under Inferno Studios, the things that you see behind me here, when I have time, and then I sleep sometimes.
Right. Yeah. As if. Tommy, the man who never sleeps.
Nope, not lately.
And on the big screen, for those of you watching at home, you're now seeing the wonderful artwork of Haley Martin.
Yes. Yep. Beautiful. That's a book called Bear. Yep.
And for everybody out there, this is all the behind the scenes stuff. So be sure to check out silverlinecomics.com. Tim curates an awesome blog going on there about behind the scenes, the minds and the workings of all of our creatives, and our Facebook page, our Instagram page, or even LinkedIn. We try to get little bits of our artwork up there, and you'll find links to all of our creatives. Dean mentioned Silver Blade, that he's teasing some stuff out there for that. His pencils are incredible, and as Tommy works on those, it looks amazing. So it's a lot of fun to be able to see the work in progress, because that's just part of watching Silverline work happen and stories be created. So it's awesome. And tomorrow, check the Facebooks for maybe a little bonus cover that might be coming to Kickstarter.
Ooh. Yes.
Ooh, interesting.
Dean and
Can't
Tommy
wait
know
to
all
see.
about that. So we've got some cool
That's the one you're talking about. Oh,
extra
okay.
artwork coming, and that'll be up. So go to at Steam Patriots on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm saying it very fast, Steam Patriots. And also mark your calendars, May 13th for Kickstarter, all right? So you got July 10th for History Camp. You got May 13th for Kickstarter, our next Kickstarter campaign, and that is also featuring number 2 of Divinity, the award-winning title written by Barb Kalberg and R.A. Jones. And I don't have the whole artistic team, but I will get that. I don't have it in front of me, so pardon me.
Well, she's providing the inks, and I think she's coloring it also.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, Barb's really rocking and rolling on that story. So it's a great story. If you've not read Divinity #1, you can go to silverlinecomics.com and click along the top. You can get our comics from Indie Planet, and we recommend buying a few dozen while you're there. So grab those and grab every Silverline title you can, because our titles are going to keep growing and growing and growing, and our story worlds are going to keep getting bigger and better and more amazinger. So we are always excited. I think. Oh, and Tommy's going to be at Pensacon May 21st through the 23rd. So if you want to say hello to him, get his signature, and if you were one of the few that got the signature books, take that along, and that signature book will go up price-wise by tenfold with a Tommy Flormonti signature on it. That's a guarantee.
You also be selling the signature as an NFT.
Ooh. Ooh.
We've also got a news on the last Kickstarter. I've started printing on everything, and hopefully this week, maybe early next week, we should be done. I think I mentioned it last week, but it's still, there's a big queue of things that we're printing, so it's in the queue. Yeah. But it's going to be. I've got most of it printed. I don't know if I'll have it all done by the end of the week. What is Wednesday now? So I probably won't have it done. But they should start shipping next week, I would think.
Very nice.
So, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and as always, I try not to forget, thank you for everybody that supports our Kickstarter campaigns and for your patience while things get compiled and printed and all that sort of stuff and in the mail and all your extras tossed in. So those should be in your hands very, very soon. Okay.
Also, September 18th and 19th, Daytona Beach Comic Convention.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Put that on your calendar as well. And I'm sure there will be more as everything evolves and changes. We're hearing news of conventions happening. I am trying to go just as an attendee to the Three Rivers Comic Convention, Comic-Con in Pittsburgh. And it's outdoors this year, so they're calling it Comic-Con Light. Nice. If you guys out there hear of, and I mean our viewers, know conventions and events happening, toss them up in the comments or shoot us an email. And we're very heavy in the South, Florida, and we got Tim over in Oregon and me up in New York. So we can't all be to the same conventions, but we would love to meet folks out there if you are going to be attending one.
I'm trying to figure out Rose City, which is our big one up in Portland. I may be getting a pro pass and walking around then. Maybe not. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. What do you know? When is that?
I don't even know if they know when it's at.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all kind of fluid, right?
We had two up here pre-COVID. We had two. I think we had one in Niagara Falls and one in Buffalo. And then there was a smaller one in Rochester. So I've been trying to look at the calendar, but nothing's been updated for this year. So if anything, Pittsburgh's the closest thing I've seen. I know that my editor, colorer, letterer, and good buddy Dan who grew up down near Long Island or on Long Island knows of a few down towards New York City. So, anyways, if we're gonna be there, we will put those up on our outlets, and hopefully you guys will get word of it, and we can say hello and meet in person. So, tonight's topic, I know you've all been waiting very patiently. We are going to talk about sidekicks, and I know we're going to go all over the place with this topic. I don't have anything to get the ball rolling, but Tim said he was all prepared to talk at length. I'm going to just put the spotlight right on him. If you want to get the ball rolling about our sidekicks discussion, and it's going to go all over. I think we're going to talk about the merits, the good, the bad, the necessities, the unnecessities of sidekicks. So, Tim, thoughts on sidekicks?
Okay. Well,
I don't know how you.
yes. So Dean and I kind of started talking about this just during our pre-show warm-up, as Dean and I are like to do if we're recording early and we're not talking about the ghost stories or martial arts or whatever else comes up.
Right. Right.
And we kind of figured a good kind of starting point would be kind of where sidekicks got created and why they were put in for comics in particular, but we can also talk about just in general. One of the earlier known sidekicks would be Sancho Panza for Don Quixote.
Very good.
Okay.
We're getting literary. Tim.
Yeah.
Good
yes.
for you.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, this is what a BFA or MFA will get you: a bookshelf full of books that aren't your own.
Shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Right. That's good. That's good.
As well as there are
there's
plenty in
there's
Shakespearean
Parsifal.
as well. Parsifal, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the and perhaps what we see most in those kind of sidekicks aren't necessarily what Dean and I mentioned being a pitfall in some comic sidekicks, where they seem more so just as a insert for the audience or as some sort of filter for the viewer. But what I like to see, like, where it's an actual emotional double or emotional counter to, or intellectual counter for your protagonist. So Don Quixote, of course, being a foolhardy goof. Sancho Panza is his pragmatic ward who perhaps understands the actual politics and surrounding infrastructure better than Don Quixote. But still lets him charge off into his windmill. We talk about Arthurian sidekicks. You have Arthur, perhaps representing more so of bravery incarnate, and he's just that without any other real factors. Arthurian characters are actually very one-dimensional when we get really down to nitty-gritty of it, but they're just well developed as time went on. Merlin is his intellect incarnate, and you have the different knights who are all different variations of that. Whereas Lancelot is passion incarnate, and that also causes some trouble, and that's when you get some, what I think being cool development for. We do see in some sidekicks now in comics where if a sidekick has their own agency, that actually drives them into conflict with their protagonist and creates more of a plot important story rather than just the sidekick being that filter or being that viewership. So, Dean, if you also want to talk about your views on where sidekicks come from and what you liked in them, kind of how we talked about earlier.
Yes, I'd be glad to. We were discussing earlier that a lot of the creation of Sidekick was to create a window for a younger audience if the publishers felt that perhaps the main character was too mature. If Batman seemed too much of an old fogey or Superman, then bringing in a younger teenage page, so to speak, using the night page template idea, then the idea was that the younger reader could then identify with the page, and that character would allow him to experience the adventure from his perspective. I think another great literary reference that you made me think of, Tim, earlier was Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Holmes being this sort of impossibly perfect, aloof intellect, and then Watson being a more, accessible personality to the average reader, and that actually works as a window because it's kind of hard to experience life through the eyes of a constant genius character like Holmes. It's kind of like the fellow student in Algebra 2 class that always figured it out before you did, and you're like, seriously? How did you figure that out? So it was that kind of thing. But I think the window idea serves a purpose. It can also, I think it can also feel like pandering if it's not done well. If it's done well, it does serve a purpose. However, I'd like your thoughts too, and the whole room's thoughts on the idea of a character like Batman having Robin along. The concept was always, you felt like Batman could pretty much do the gig on his own, and so Robin sort of became like this, almost a damsel in distress sort of situation, or a learning and failing, making a mistake and then figuring it out, and sort of the maturing teenager following the master's lead. But how do you guys feel about, did Robin ultimately enhance, or did he just become a ball and chain for Batman? What are your thoughts, Scott?
Well, which incarnation are we talking about?
Anyone you wish to address at this point.
I want to talk about, and I did log off. I'm using the app now. Is it better? Any better?
Wow, it's working tremendously.
It is actually,
well.
yes.
Okay, good.
Can you see,
Night.
can you see Haley?
Day and night.
And I can see Haley. Yes, hi Haley.
There you
So cool. Yeah.
So I may have missed it if you mentioned it, but the literary application of not leaving your hero alone is very useful. And in the comic book world, you have that extra method of either the thought balloon or captions. You can, but in like the TV show, you can't have Adam West talking to nobody. He can't be running around by himself. So the whole TV show was cheese, all just comic book and 60s cheese. So that Robin, was kind of that goofy kind of he wasn't so much of a bumbler, but he did kind of get in the way. I don't know what purpose he really served. Much like the incarnation of Holmes and Watson, was it the Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce? While Basil Rathbone was an iconic Sherlock Holmes, they made Nigel Bruce's Watson adult, and it's not true to the book.
Correct.
Whereas in the book, yes, he's thoughtful. He's real. We can relate to him. He can point out that Sherlock Holmes is odd. How doesn't he understand, or how does he understand these things? So each incarnation of Robin, I guess when I don't know. I feel like when he's more on par with Batman, I like him more.
Yep.
Maybe you get more the feel of the Watson Holmes dynamic with someone older, maybe like a Dick Grayson. Like, I was fortunate enough to draw a comic with Nightwing in the adventure with Batman, and it was cool because there was a lot more of the almost equal interaction rather than master page sort of interaction.
And this is something we kind of talked about beforehand, where my sentiments on it is I'm not the biggest fan of Tim Drake Robin, because it felt very much as we've had two Robins, we need to get another Robin in there to be the young folk. And I liked later Dick Grayson going into Nightwing because it did feel like that. It wasn't just here's a filter for your protagonist. It's he certainly serves his literary outputs for the writer who needs to have some explaining done. But there's an arc where Batman sees that Gotham needs more help than just him, but he also doesn't necessarily want to do it alone. So he's going to take in one other student, raise up to be their own hero. And you get that fun arc of Dick Grayson maturing enough to become Nightwing, Batman developing enough trust to put in someone besides himself. And it is two relevant plot wheels turning. It's not just, well, gee Willikers, Batman, what are we going to do?
Right.
And Jason Todd, while not my favorite Robin, he's my favorite character who wore the Robin suit at one point, and I liked his impact on Batman. And that he's the guy. They had the Hush storyline, which taught about men failure, but Jason Todd's storyline in Death in the Family is the storyline that taught Batman crippling failure, where he messed up so bad he got a kid killed before Resurrection Pits and Red Hood things and all fun stuff. But where it's Batman now having to come to grips with taking a ward under your wing, trying to develop that trust in them, and then realizing you messed up so bad that they're gone now.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a really good use of a sidekick necessarily.
I don't know if does Damian function as a sidekick? I mean, being family, does that change his status as sidekick in any way? What do you guys think?
I feel like, we have family, I feel like just changes the emotional storyline, but as far as the practical storyline of what each character serves in terms of archetypes can remain separate. So, like the Fantastic Four, they don't really have any one of them being the sidekick at any given time. I mean, maybe they need someone to lead the story, but it's a stable group. Whereas, Batman or White Knight comics, it's Batman and then Damian Wayne below him. Yeah.
That makes sense. We also touched on the fact that it's interesting how DC seems to have more sidekicks than Marvel. We could come up with, a lot of Captain America sidekicks, but we were trying to think of other Marvel characters had sidekicks, and we're like,
Yeah, I think
there's a lot of team ups.
Yeah, Marvel's always felt more of the stable to me, and I'm not sure. Stan probably said something about it in an interview somewhere because he's talked about everything in comics at some point.
Yeah.
But I think that's also one of the reasons why I liked Marvel more so. Right up, besides just they felt just a little splashier, but it didn't feel necessarily like any one character was there to be talked down to or be explained through. It was each person has their own background, so the background needs explaining, but as far as the situation at hand, they're all kind of on the same page and are operating as a team. It's not straight commands. I mean, even Cable and Deadpool, they make jokes about not one of them being, or Deadpool makes jokes about Cable being sidekick, and then Cable throw that joke back at him. But it's very clear that they're both on the same page.
Right.
Also, I noticed in Marvel, sometimes, depending on the writer, especially with the X-Men, because of the vast stable of characters and the endless incarnations and reincarnations and deaths and resurrections, I always thought it was interesting that Jubilee Wolverine relationship was almost sidekick.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Yeah, and that's something that I've talked about a bit with other people is Wolverine has sort of the similar but in a different way trauma to Batman, where it's the removal of family.
Yes.
And so the thing that broke Batman when Jason Todd died was we start to see family and the people you start to put trust in. So when Jason Todd goes away, he experiences that trauma again. And Wolverine essentially ends up adopting Jubilee and becomes the godfather to her kids. And that relationship has also felt where it's more so mentor-mentee.
Yeah.
But I think that also comes from the very apparent age gap that they've created. That I mean, once Dick Grayson becomes Nightwing, They just kind of drew them as two characters in the mid-30s.
Right.
Yeah.
But Jubilee has always been, in some way, teenagerish, whereas Wolverine has
Yeah.
always showed up being, middle-aged or
Dude.
beyond. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and I like that dynamic better than just really the I'm the hero, you're the goofy sidekick. I like I don't know, usually older, more experienced veteran hero or whatever we are, or the character bringing someone under their wing to mentor them. I like that dynamic. I feel like it's more natural than just having a pal that chums around with them. And I wonder, like, is there any would the 60s Batman Robin sidekick relationship fly now, just stylistically? Because you look at all the team ups and none of them are a sidekick anymore. I mean, just the Winter Soldier and Falcon right now,
Yeah, that's a buddy show.
Yeah,
It's less sidekick driven now, it seems like, and it's more everyone's just, you're either a team or buddies, or brother sister harping on each other, or it's almost like there's this push to have them equal, to not have one be an apprentice sort of idea. Although you still have that.
Yeah. And we all operate in indie comics for the most part now, and indie comics seem to be getting the most new characters. But even then, like, I can't think of like anything I've seen where a sidekick has been its major push or one of its defining features in any new indie title in years.
Yeah.
Now go ahead, Dean.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and there are some exceptions, but in essence, what you have are retro tributes, vintage style comics that are being done. Red Rooster comes to mind. Things like that, where it's intentionally being written and the story takes place in a retro environment, like in this case, the 30s, where that sort of goofy sidekick idea and even goofy dialogue that wouldn't fly today is used throughout to help establish the tone. And I think, again, to your point, Scott, the era makes a difference. If your story is set during a certain era, there are just certain social conventions that are accepted, and then that wouldn't be today.
Yeah, I think also if we look at the way education has been done or since changed, where I mean, even back until like the 50s or 60s, apprenticeship was kind of a major thing for going into any sort of trade, where if you're either you learned with your family or you end up going through apprenticeship and you end up going through there. I mean, the modern education system was really a product of the 50s. And now it's at the point where it almost feels like if you're a kid, you're expected to know your major by the time you enter high school.
Right. Yeah.
And so I feel like now, I also feel like that contributed to characters like Kamala Khan, where she is very much a high schooler, but she's had interactions with Wolverine, giving her the finer points of stuff, or Peter Parker. But she's, it's like, you have YouTube, figure it out, kid. I think the same Wolverine I extended her at some point. It's like, hey, you got to figure this out. Like, I got Galactus to deal with. You got the suburb in New York.
Yeah. Well, and I also think too, I mean, of course, the storytelling in comic books has evolved as the readers have grown up and wanted more than two-dimensional characters that punch each other. They want their story. So then now that you've developed your characters out, well, now they're more of a person, and he's not just a chum, the sidekick that tags along. He's got a personality, and that with that comes a backstory and feelings and then how they interact. It's not just, okay, let's get in to the Batmobile and let's go beat something up and be done. There's story, there's a connection, emotions. So that elevates that character up, even if it's like a mentor like Wolverine and a student like Jubilee, or now the movie universe of Tony Stark and Peter Parker. There's more to it. He's not a sidekick. I like that. I think the mentor role is good. I like that. Sometimes they're the reluctant mentor too. They okay, come along. I'm grumpy and I don't want to help you, but I'll still throw you little pearls of wisdom as we also punch things and things blow up.
Yeah, I think one of the closest examples I think of something that could turn into a psychic relationship in recent publishing from one of the big two was leading into Keenan Black, where we end up finding I forgot his name, Brock, but Venom, his son, Eddie Brock, ends up finding he has some weird relationship with symbiotes because he was conceived while his dad and his mother both had symbiotes. So okay, we're symbiote powers, cool. Comics, that makes sense. But instead, there's just because of his dad being estranged, them not knowing his mom all that well, and the weird kind of mutual respect and distrust that Sleeper, which ends up being a symbiote that works with Eddie's son, and the Venom symbiote have. You get this kind of weird dynamic where it feels like Eddie's son should become a sidekick and learn how to superhero underneath Eddie Brock while I have this big threat coming on. But Eddie doesn't want his son to be involved at all because it's dangerous, and he's like, I nearly die every day. I don't want you near this stuff. And his son and the symbiote that he works with are also kind of like, I'm not sure I want to learn how to superhero from you if I do learn it all. So it ends up creating this fun conflict where even though it could be a psychic style relationship, there's enough conflict there to create its own storyline. And so I feel like when you are hyper evolving characters to a point where everyone serves in their own 3-dimensional aspect now, you're going to also create more conflict there, which might separate a traditional sidekick relationship.
Speaking of evolving sidekick relationships, if I may invoke a classic template from Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces.
No.
No, I may not. Okay.
Go ahead.
Never mind. So anyway, I will. If we look at Star Wars, which is really helpful in story structure if you're going to use the hero's journey.
Right.
Luke literally starts out as a sidekick and becomes the main character through the 3-part story arc. And because arguably, some might argue he's the main character in the first movie, but most would say he's kind of the whiny kid, and it's really Han Solo who's the cool guy, and Obi-Wan's the mentor. And I mean, Leia's just a great character as a princess. She's a leading character as a princess, and Luke's just kind of the whiny kid, until we get to Empire. And then all of a sudden, the sidekick becomes the main focus because it's about training, which they kind of forgot about in the new trilogy. But we're not going to go there. Don't take us way off the rails with Rey being the most perfect character of all time. But anyway, go ahead.
In the movie world, where it is hard to have internal monologue because that narrator style has gone away. It's not popular. It's rare to have that narrator, especially in a serious movie, right? I mean, anyways, can we think of a movie where the protagonist is left alone truly, I mean, through the entire movie? Now,
John Wick.
Wait, John Wick? I mean, alone. With no one to
has
talk.
No, strictly speaking, I can't think of one. I mean, because there has to be a foil. There has to be someone to illuminate what's going through the leading character's mind.
Yeah, I mean, even
Yeah, that has
even in
whether
the
it be foiled,
yeah,
you know.
Even
It-
Tom Hanks.
I mean,
He-
even in the Gray, where the antagonist is nature or a wolf,
Yeah.
you still have the crew there, or the passengers of the downed plane.
Yeah, I a couple years ago I watched a oh gosh, what's his name? It's the movie. I think this movie is called All Is Lost. Robert Redford,
Mm.
and he's on a sailboat all by himself, and it starts off. The only dialogue in the whole movie is him like dictating the letter he writes, and I don't know what he does. It folds it up, puts it in a baggie or something like that. And I don't remember. Actually, I don't remember if he makes it or not. I can't remember the end of the movie. But it is him alone on a ship the entire time. But he vocalizes. So that's because there's got to be a way to get words out.
There is. You made me think of this, saying that there's a movie about being trapped by a shark called The Shallows. Have you seen it with Blake Lively?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where she's just isolated and
Yeah.
it's just her, and she can't get back because this thing is circling,
Right.
and she has to figure out how to time just the right time for her. She's an excellent diver, swimmer type, but she just gets isolated and she can't make it, and so she's really the only character in the movie. And again, vocalizing Tom
But
Hanks,
yeah,
as
she
you brought up
talks.
earlier.
Yeah, she talks, right?
Mhm.
And I remember that movie too.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're right that there's a lot, and that's good. That makes storytelling difficult. So therefore, you get
Mm.
creative, and so you get a lot of facial expressions. You get a lot of close-ups. You get a lot, and then they'll shout something to nature or to the gods.
Mhm.
So that
Mhm.
makes for
Mhm.
great storytelling. But it's difficult leaving a character alone.
Mhm.
So
But perhaps the vintage idea of the sidekick has evolved, matured,
Yeah.
transformed. What do you think?
yeah, and they're not just that sounding board. They're not a two-dimensional.
Mhm.
What do you think? And they're always a great, like, I don't know, and learn me. Was Robin meant to be the oh my gosh, what's the word? Was he supposed to be different than Batman so much so that he was a contrast? Was he originally meant to? Because he turns into an excellent contrast because that points to the hero, that they point to each other's faults and strengths, right? Because one can be impetuous and one can hold him back. One can say, "We're going to fight." One's we're going to talk. And that makes for their own conflict, which makes for it interesting. Was Robin? We keep going back to Robin, but I mean, he's, I guess, the most iconic sidekick. Was he originally meant for that, or did he evolve as comics and storytelling evolved? Because I'll go to Winter Soldier and Falcon. They're different, and that makes for great storytelling, and that makes for conflict because you always need conflict.
Mm-hmm.
At every turn, so it's not just the enemy; it's them. Captain America and Iron Man. Those are great. They butt heads all the time.
Brilliant. That's a brilliant point. As to the intent of Robin when he was created, I would imagine there was not a whole lot of psychological thought behind it, other than, hey, we need more kids.
Right.
Give them a sidekick.
Yeah.
What happens when these people grow up and quit reading Batman? So we need to bring in some new,
Right.
So, but then again, as the industry itself, the art form matured and became what we know today as this gigantic, titanic leviathan of industry and entertainment. I mean, can you imagine even 30 years ago, thinking that movies of this budget level would be made about these characters was just ridiculous. I mean, you had cheesy TV shows, and that was it.
Almost 30 years ago, you had Steel featuring Shaq.
Right. And the only thing that gave you hope was like The Crow.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, this is how cool it could be, but they're not there yet.
Yeah.
But then I'll make an exception that, though, in '89 we did have Burton's Batman, Tim Burton's Batman.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yep.
we did have that. We did have that.
Yeah.
So we knew it could be done. It just wasn't done well on the Marvel side till much, much later.
Right.
Arguably with Blade
Mhm.
1 being the first one, and then other people would say, no, it was X-Men, and other people would say, no, it was Sam Raimi Spider-Man 2, and but all those are valid,
Yeah.
I would say. But at any rate, Sidekicks, today I would call them friends.
Yeah. I mean, looking at, I actually just my brain just jogged a little bit because I was thinking about what I haven't had a chance to catch up on my Comixology polls, but right now from Marvel, I am reading Eternals because they got the movie coming up, and I figured I kind of want to see what they're doing with the main arc now that they did in issue 1 this year, and they're doing a year-long arc going into the movie. And it very even though it's a stable, it's the Eternals. It has a very clear main character in Icarus, and he picks up a very clear sidekick in Sprite. Even though they operate more in terms of a stable, where they send Sprite off to go work with the Eternals on in the Machine. The Machine also kind of operates as a narrator / sidekick, being the voice in the head for Icarus at times. And so you get a very clear dynamic of, okay, he's a hero with 2 sidekicks that are helping him throughout the story, and he's the one driving the action, and they're there to cover his blind sides or release plot when we need it or whatever. But it's still wrapped up in that stable, so that way at any time they can just hard cut away from Icarus, and you're like, okay, here's Sprite, the Machine, and the Eternals doing something else. And so I think we are seeing more of that point where it's been a common thing, but I feel like it really picked up since the 80s, especially since the real time, the multi-viewpoint story, or the multi-persona driven story, where here's our main character, and people perhaps recognize this more so from Game of Thrones than Real Time at this point, where he's like, okay, here's our main character for this book, here's Ned Stark. Here's another main character, here's Tyrion Lannister. Here's another main character, here's Jon Snow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like even though you can write those clear, this character exists to help out this character type stories, you're also are going to feel more comfortable because you've had so much more influence from this. It's like, okay, what does this character want besides helping this other character? What do they want, and how can they explore that on their own? And like kind of how we talked about earlier, that leads into evolving that character into their own person, where each person has their own wants and desires, even if they do in some way help out them the main character throughout the arc of the story.
Well, I've talked about this before. The role playing game, the Hill Folk, and how every character I implement this in my D&D games. So rather than having 2-dimensional characters, I'm a fighter who's going to meet a bard at a tavern, and we're going to go on a mission together. We have some sort of connection. And what do I want from you, and what do you want from me? Because every interaction in a story is what do you so what's
The player
which one's that? Yes. Yes.
Nice.
So I think it adds another element when you are the petitioner or the grantor, and that's what you're saying. You can have these really well-rounded characters who are all want something from the other, need something from the other, and then that and you're always switching. You're always switching. I'm the grantor. You're the petitioner. Will I grant you what you want? And that can be something tangible, or it can be love. It can be attention. It can be affirmation, and that's always switching. And so that, as I think this is the theme we're on, is how we've gone from these 2-dimensional action heroes to really well-rounded characters. And yes, now they've all got their stories, and they've all got their backgrounds and their plots, and yeah, that elevates them. While they may be, this one might be the grizzled veteran, and this one might be the greenhorn. On the character world, the scope of their of their character, it's much bigger, and they're on par that way.
You brought up something earlier, Scott, that I want to touch on. Can you expand on the relationship between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers? As first, I'd love to hear your take on who's the sidekick. Number two, what does each character want, and why did they clash?
Ooh, wow. See, that's a difficult answer because the characters have been so wonderfully developed, and they're so deep. Like Tony Stark, what does he want? I mean, sometimes he wants fame, and then sometimes he comes crashing back to Earth because of his failures or his hubris or his alcoholism. And so then what does he want? He wants love, or he wants reconciliation. And then, so I don't know if we stick right to the movie world. Steve Rogers wants, well, in the lead up to Civil War, he wants heroes to be left alone, to not be controlled. Tony wants to fix a problem, and because he wants to stop the chaos from happening of uncontrolled mutants, or they don't say mutants in the MCU. Sorry, what do they say? Enhanced.
Yeah.
Enhanced, yes. Enhanced.
The superheroes. So that's a tough one because Tony is the freewheeling. But what makes it great in the movie is then he suddenly becomes the law-abiding.
Yeah.
And then so the law-abiding Boy Scout becomes the criminal, which makes for such a great story. So
well, that works so well, doesn't it? They almost invert.
Yeah.
And yet, ultimately, if we take it back even further into their psychology, without getting too pointy-head and academic here.
That's okay. Go for it.
It's fun. It's fun. Tony might just want absolution. And Steve, I think, wants to be the hero that he never saw himself as when he was a skinny kid before the serum, right? So he wants to be as good as he always wanted to be. He wants to earn the name Captain America.
Yeah.
Tony wants absolution from all the bad stuff he's done.
Yeah.
And so they both go about it in different ways, but ultimately they both have immature qualities, which makes them fascinating.
Right.
And that's what makes them good sidekicks of each other. I would argue they're both one's a sidekick of the other in any given story arc environment. That would be my answer to that.
And again, more good storytelling is, there's an ebb and flow of, okay, I can do this. I need your help. Now it's my turn to do this. I need your help. And you're right. And I wasn't crazy about Iron Man 3.
No.
But I thought it was a great Tony Stark storyline. That's what I liked.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're right. He does the flip, and he realizes, hey, I've been a horse's backside, and I need to make amends. And I always love, that's one of the retribution or reconciliation
redemption.
Or redemption is a great
redemption.
Like with Snape in Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
I love that as a theme in a story. And
I did as well.
And I'm going to try to work that. I've got a character in Steam Patriots that hopefully the story arc will go long enough that there will be redemption for him. And I'm working in some characters that are the contrast to Felix the hero. So they serve a purpose. They're not just there to be some sort of plot or literary means of telling the story. But
one might even say that the hero, the traditional idea of the hero of the story, is actually at one point was a sidekick to something, even if it was an ideology, right, that they have adopted as their own. Arthur, if we go Arthurian, yeah, he's the center hero, but he's not necessarily perfect. He's trying to be. That's what makes, I think that's why it's hard to write Boy Scouts like Superman, and arguably like Spider-Man, as he should be written, should be a Boy Scout. Steve Rogers be written as a Boy Scout. The difficulty I think some writers find with those characters, so they have to diminish their heroic qualities and turn them into rough, tough, gritty anti-heroes, which is fine if that's what you like. But there's a deeper challenge to write the Boy Scout, simply because you realize this is a flawed individual who's trying to fill the shoes of an ideology that he strongly believes in. And he's not succeeding at it 100%. And that's why he's so passionate about it. And I think that's why Steve is such a great character to write, if you know how to write that type of struggling character. Peter Parker, when he's struggling to live up to Uncle Ben's expectations of him, that's when he's the most interesting, to me.
I'm going to pitch a softball to Tim here. Cyclops living up to Professor X, but having Wolverine create the problem.
And oh man, well, okay, so now in Hickman's, this is great now that I got this here. In Hickman's X-Men run, now that so Marvel did the thing which I think they should do with stables is don't try to engineer it like Dean's always said and what I kind of say. They just kind of let a creator have their confident moment and like, okay, go for it. So they found Hickman, like, all right, 3 years of X-Men, do it. So he did House of X, Powers of X year 1. We're in year 2 now, and it's been really fun because it's X-Men doing stuff that you feel like they should have done, but they haven't. You can tell they haven't had the green light to do from Powers That Be. And so they're doing this really cool thing where they finally decided to stop killing off Xavier, and they've unified the timelines and explained why it's such a mess. And they've had some fun moments with that. But now we're seeing this point where, okay, Xavier has a grand plan, and he's also has Moira McTaggart, who is the key kind of snow globe to his plan. And Eric Lyncher as Magneto is the hard line in that plan. So you have these 3 characters that are very much leading unique parts of that, whatever this plan is, and the mutants are like, okay, we're here. The rest of the mutant nation is just saying, okay, we're here to support these 3 people in their plan, and we'll do as needed. So they have side-manned the entire X-Men stable. They've sidekicked the entire X-Men stable, which has led to some really interesting character arcs for now. We're following Cyclops and the Summers family living on their moon base, which is very Thunderbirds Argo. And you see a lot of moments where the characters are having evolution or development moments where they're kind of doing the, are we really sidekicks to this belief? Is this belief system what we believe in? And ultimately, a lot of them are deciding on, yes, this is kind of what we believe in. And so we're seeing a lot of moments where Cyclops is talking to Nightcrawler, and there's gladiatorial combat with the apocalypse happening in the background, but the main focus is on these characters talking it out and evolving as characters, as sidekicks to this ideology of what does a mutant nation look like? How should a mutant nation behave? Do we have to forgive all the other terrible mutants and recognize that we're still one family and all this other kind of fun stuff? And you get some fun moments with Exodus being a focus character again, despite the fact that he was in for a year and then kicked out the door because no one wanted to touch him. And his idea of being the weird middle ground between hardline mutant beliefs and more softer approaches like Xavier had, where he's like right down the middle, where mutants can coexist, but only if they're their own unique pocket civilization, and there's, by having sidekicks that talk about themselves and essentially theory craft themselves. I think if you're a fan of something, you're going to theory craft it. You're going to like, okay, why does this character do this? What does this mean? What does this one chair they put in this one panel mean 5 years down the line? But having characters that actually genuinely do that about themselves, even if they're there to serve some other character's ideology, if they're sidekicks to that ideology, then you end up getting these really fun moments where they don't feel like a sidekick, but for all intents and purposes, they are. And so that's kind of my input on that is Cyclops being a sidekick to Xavier's ideology, but he's foiled by himself by his other mutants, and it causes moments of evolution between them.
Good point.
I got real excited for a second there.
Yeah,
No, it was good. It was good. The passion was tangible.
I was hoping that would happen.
We were stunned.
You talk about, I don't know if you were specifically meaning about being a secondary character or being secondary to something, but also there are good characters, and there are, even in the real world, we can't all be leaders, and that's not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Being a good follower is sometimes very necessary.
That's the Samwise Gamgee effect.
You're reading my mind. Samwise, really the true hero of Lord of the Rings. But
here we go.
But yes, you're right, and there are amazing things that can come from. What's Oh gosh, I'm not gonna remember the character's name. Anyone seen? Yes. The Jimmy Stewart Flight of the Phoenix.
Yeah.
With it's got Ernest Borgnine.
Mm-hmm.
But the officer, I can't remember what I'm sorry, I haven't seen it in 20 years, but there's an officer and his sergeant. He ends up being kind of an oddball, but he's there for his commander, and it's a great that's another evolution that we could talk about too. Go through war movies and look how the protagonist was always an officer, and then through time it became the enlisted men, because it was more relatable. But like Bridge on the River Kwai, how they followed him to a fault. Yes. Hey,
Brent's joining us after his normal bedtime.
Yeah, hey, it's after your bed. You should be in bed. But that is a great character as well. A good, and sidekick may not be the right word, but a good compatriot, a good friend makes for a great story.
Well, that's not necessarily friends, but Master and Commander. That entire movie is the evolution of that relationship.
I would recommend those books if you haven't. I'm halfway through the Aubrey Maturin series, and I absolutely love them. But if you don't know nautical terms, even a guy that was in the Coast Guard, I literally keep my phone with me while I read those books, because sometimes I'm like, what the heck is he talking about? I have no idea. And it's so funny, I'm reading those and the Horatio Hornblower series.
Yeah.
Horatio Hornblower are like action, more like a little more fun, a little kind of unbelievable on the action side. Whereas the Aubrey Maturin series will take 30 pages for the ship to leave harbor. Like it's like there's so much detail. But if you love like maritime, and you're right, the story development is Captain Aubrey and Dr. Maturin, and how they hate each other and love each other, and they love the same woman, and it's a great story, and they are not they play off each other, and they need like Frodo would not have done it without Sam. I think Sam would have done it without Frodo, but it's
I want to throw this in. Interesting that you brought up the Hornblower series and the Aubrey Maturin, because they heavily influenced the tone of Star Trek. So I just want to throw that. Think about it.
So for everyone playing bingo out there, you can mark off Star Trek.
Yes.
And
also we can confirm that Master Commander, The Far Side of the World, is part of the MCU because Paul Bettany, Young Vision, was Dr. Maturin.
He is there. Yep. And Also, Pippin is
Yeah.
in that. Yep.
Oh, you're right.
Who I've met. That is my.
Ooh.
You've all heard the
Wow.
story, right?
Yeah.
Very nice.
You've all heard that
I have
story.
not. No.
Oh, well,
Please share.
okay. So, okay. While I was living in Hawaii, this was while Lost was being filmed, and I had not gotten into Lost, which I don't recommend anyone gets into Lost. I'm sorry.
No, watch it. Just don't watch the last season.
You'll be disappointed. So they were filming. They were filming Lost, and my wife had started watching it, but I had seen a couple episodes, and I was driving from the hardware store and saw Merry and Pippin sitting at a table with two guys that I had no idea who they were, and I got all like nervous, and I had my Ace Hardware receipt. So I pulled over, I interrupted their breakfast. I was very gracious. I said, I know I'm interrupting.
Did you sing the song?
Which one?
Everybody. That was the song in the movie in Lost.
Oh, I thought you were going to them in the merry old inn beneath the hills of green.
I was gonna say I was doing almost
I'm
beyond.
sure they would have loved that.
So they were having breakfast with two other individuals. I said, I am a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I've just started watching Lost. And I said to Dominic Monaghan, I said, because Billy Boyd wasn't in Lost, so I don't know why he was there. I said, so are you to the other people, are you in Lost? And he said, oh, no, but they're very famous. And they all laughed. And I didn't know what that meant. But so he took my receipt. Billy Boyd and Dominic Monaghan signed it, and they were very nice and shook hands, and away I went. But my story, so I was really cool. They were very nice, so I got their signatures. But then I called my cousin, told him I met Merry and Pippin. He didn't believe me. A couple weeks later, he is at Bucknell University, and Sean Astin was giving a talk to their theater people, and my cousin snuck in with his friend as a caterer. And Sean Astin was cool enough to let my cousin stand next to him and call me. And so Sean Astin calls me on my phone, and on my cousin's phone. And I was like, "Hello, John." And he said, "Hey, is this Scott?" "Yeah." "This is Sean Astin." And I said, "Oh,
Yeah.
Hi, Sean. Are you in Hawaii too?" Because I was still living in Hawaii, and he had just filmed 50 First Dates. And he's like, no, I'm here in Pennsylvania with your cousin. And so I started to realize that, okay, I was being an idiot, and it really was Sean Astin.
It really was Sean Astin.
Yeah. So I was a moron to Sean Astin. He was really cool, and he signed a napkin for me. He wrote "Go Coast Guard" on it, because here's your trivia when you're at your next cocktail party. Sean Astin's first appearance on screen was as a baby in a Elton John music video. But as a young lad, he was in a public service announcement for the Coast Guard for people with his mom, Patty Duke, and his dad, John Astin, for people to wear their life jackets. So there's your Sean Astin trivia.
Yeah. Very good trivia. Very good trivia.
Well, next time he comes over to the house, I'll ask if he remembers you, and then he's gonna.
He'll remember me, the idiot who didn't know him. So
but that doesn't even come close to the question I'm sure all our audience is wondering, which is, what would happen if you actually need to return something from that Ace Hardware receipt?
Oh, you're right. You're right.
You were risking a major disaster there.
I would never be able to return it. Mm-hmm. I'm glad that now more than a decade has passed, and I haven't returned.
Did you frame it, or did you set it down somewhere?
Yeah, I've got it in a little box with the napkin. Those are the only celebrities I've ever met. I think I've told my awkward Uhura story as well. I was at Nickel City Con in Buffalo a couple of years ago. So she's in a wheelchair. She was at a booth way off. And then I was at my buddy's. Oh, actually, Dan had a table, and her assistant just wheeled her up and stopped her right in front of the table, and then her assistant walked away. And so Nichelle Nichols is right there, and I went. I was all kinds of Scott Wakefield awkward, and I went, "Hi," and she said, "Hello." And I was about to say something else, and her assistant came and away they went. It was so cringy on my part. I was, hi.
I've done the same thing in green rooms, and I've walked in and there's a bunch of movie star type folks in there, and I go, I love all you guys. I'm leaving. And I just turn around and walk out.
That's one of my favorite things about the Full Sail campus when they're filming NXT. There is you'd be in the back like trying to get through the like hallways in Building 2, which are pretty narrow until you get to like the actual fishbowl. And then you have like Triple H and Samoa Joe filming a promo. Excuse me, just kind of sneak through here.
You're like, you guys need to move out of the way. I'm coming through.
Yeah.
I don't care what you guys are doing. Blocking the way. I paid money to be here.
Is it fair to say, Scott? Is it fair to say that in the world of epic fantasy, that Samwise is the most famous sidekick of all time?
I would be inclined to agree.
Yeah, I'd agree as well.
Brent's got something to say over there. I can see Brent.
I can see it. The wheels are turning. It's brimming. It's going to just spill out at any moment.
We're talking about sci-fi fantasy?
We're talking about epic fantasy,
epic fantasy. Is there any other sidekick worth mentioning? Nothing really comes to mind for me. I'm sure there is. I just can't think of it.
There probably is. I mean, we before you joined us, we briefly touched on some literary epic sidekicks, like Percival to Arthur, things like that, and then Dr. Watson to Sherlock Holmes,
right?
That kind of thing. But as far as huge, epic, timeless fantasy stories, there's nobody like Samwise. Yeah. And no, he couldn't have done it without Samwise. There's no because actually that's the weird thing. Frodo actually fails the quest. Yeah, he fails.
I feel like if you're writing a strict psychic character, and you of course need to develop them as their own person, as we have discussed, but it also really have them be integral to the plot. Their like most redeeming feature needs to be the hero's most critical fault in some way.
Yes.
So whereas Frodo's always wanted to be an adventurer, but he's never had the will to step out of the Shire by himself until he's whisked away. So he's fallible. He can move by the winds of change. Whereas Sam has never really wanted to leave the Shire and still kind of doesn't. Yeah. He's the immovable object who just wants to get this over with.
Yep.
So we can go home.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Stop your whining.
And interestingly, the treatment of Sam and Frodo in the different incarnations of the film, Bakshi is a little bit more true to Sam and Frodo. Frodo, where I think Jackson is and their screenwriters are a little truer to Sam from the book, because Bakshi's Frodo is a little tougher, not quite as weepy and fainty, and I fall down every 5 seconds.
Well, we actually don't know because we never see him make it to Mount Doom in the Bakshi version. So,
but I mean, in terms of like how he sort of defies the writers on his own, and sort of he has that moment of defiance, like you'll never have me and you'll never have the ring and all this, and it's a lot tougher of a little scrappy little hobbit, and I think Bakshi's script captured that a little bit better. But totally on the other side, Sam is so fully realized in Jackson's take.
Animated Sam is just little
that's even over the top silly
kind of a cartoon character.
Mr. Frodo.
Mr. Frodo? Wait. He's even Right.
I do that to my kids. They hate it.
You torment them with bad Samwise.
Oh my goodness.
Ralph Bakshi. Yep. Oh gosh, yeah. I can
You're
see
dishonoring alliteration's greatest sidekick.
The only other thing I love about the Bakshi characterizations is I absolutely love the Gandalf character in his.
Yeah.
That
well,
was very well realized, I thought.
In the-
for the
in now the
time,
wor-
the limitations of the budget, and all this that
yeah, it really is. It's a marvel of movie making. But yeah, in the world of now with internet and slider bars, watching it, like I love going frame by frame when Gandalf is explaining the ring to Frodo, and his eyeballs get all crazy, and he's like, "Oh!" I love it. Or when he's at the door, and Frodo's like, so much. I mean,
Wow.
can you tell I've watched this one like 1,000 times?
No, man, I know.
That
It's
in
got moments. It's got really dark, cool moments. In it,
yeah.
but yeah. After Moria, yeah.
The Rankin Bass Hobbit is one of my absolute favorites because that one we had the LP with the book,
wow.
and you'd listen to it and go through the book, and it's interesting because the book art is different, and so I got to read up on why that's different, but yeah,
Did you watch the Return of the King Rankin Bass?
Yeah, that
version?
It's okay.
Did that song stick in your head? Where there's a whip, there's
a whip.
I mean,
there's a way.
It's just really classic stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to invoke that.
Yep, and I'll sing the greatest adventure. Trivia, more trivia.
You
At
guys
Christmas
are nailing
time,
it.
if
That's pretty much it.
If you watch The Christmas That Almost Wasn't, I would recommend the Mystery Science Theater version.
Okay.
The guy who sings the theme music for that real masterpiece is the same guy who did all the soundtrack for the Rankin Bass Hobbit.
No kidding.
Yeah, Glenn Yarbrough is his name.
Yes. Whew.
Indeed.
Wow.
Pull that one out. Just
1,000 points for you.
You've been waiting for that one for a long
Yeah,
time.
but wait, I've had a when's he gonna bring him up? Yes, I get to use this name finally.
For our bingo players, you can check out Glenn Yarbrough.
Wow. I mean, gosh, the obscure trivia. We're beyond the rabbit hole. We're like on the other side of the earth now.
Come on, yeah. Okay, so let's go back to
Back to Sidekicks.
Back to Sidekicks. Brent, we'll refresh, and we're well past the halfway point. And I want to remind our folks out there that we are sponsored by the Daytona Beach Comic Book Convention happening September 18th and 19th. Thank you to them, and we're also sponsored by the History List and HistoryCamp.org, and they have been kind enough to sponsor our streams. Please go out to their sites and their social media pages and like and follow HistoryCamp.org and Daytona Beach Comic Book Convention. We are talking Sidekicks tonight. I bet that's a surprise if you've been listening for the past 25 minutes or so. We have discussed Batman and Robin and literary sidekicks, team-ups, the evolution of storytelling and comic book characters, and how they have gone from two-dimensional punch and explosion people to real fleshed out people. We've talked about X-Men, and we've talked about Captain America, Iron Man, and the relationships of Game of Thrones, and we haven't gotten much into Star Trek. Because I was going to talk about Star Trek and conflict. I think we've talked about that a little before. The early seasons, how Gene Roddenberry said there is no conflict on the Enterprise in Next Generation. So that's an interesting storytelling problem. But conflict is always good. Having them contrast each other, having them improve each other, having a mentor, all good stuff. So that's been the topic for tonight. We're going to continue. Brent, I don't want to just go ahead and talk, but I don't know if you have input on thoughts on the usefulness of sidekicks, the uselessness of sidekicks. Do you like them? What sidekicks do you think have been great? Which ones have not been great? What sort of relationships, team up sidekick relationships do you like? And Haley, you are allowed to talk. Tommy, you too.
I'm like listening while I'm drawing. I feel like I'm in my own zone, and I don't want to.
That's fine.
That's totally fine.
Oh, I've been talking the entire time. Y'all hadn't heard me?
Who is that? Who's saying?
Is that Tommy? Wait. Oh yeah.
Huh. Well, okay. Oh, and by the way, I am staying on later because I'm part of I'm I'm on kind of a work retreat, and the hours are different, so that's why I'm able to stay on a little late.
Ooh,
Nice.
Okay.
Woohoo.
I think I've said this before, but it's probably been a long time, so hopefully everyone's forgotten. But when I think of sidekicks, I think of Buffy and Angel. Frankly, I mean the shows.
Mhm.
Jocelyn has a really good handle on sidekicks, and not just what they're there for, but what they can be, which I actually really appreciate, because I think we've all seen properties like some of the old Sherlock Holmes movies from back in the black and white era, where Watson is just kind of a big goof, and you're like, why has Holmes not kicked him to the curb and gotten a smarter roommate? I mean,
Uh-huh.
he could do it. Does he keep him around to make himself feel smarter? And then when you start to see more of the modern iterations where Watson was actually possibly just as intelligent as Holmes, just in a different way. And you kind of appreciated that relationship a lot more. But what I've appreciated about, when you think about Buffy, you think of the sidekicks as Willow and Xander. And especially at the beginning, the two of them started just as, oh, she's a hero, and oh, we love her, and we're so lucky that she lets us be her friends, because they were in high school. I mean, that's kind of what we think when we're in high school and we find someone who's cooler than us, frankly. But if you chart the series, you started to see Willow start to become not just a sidekick, but almost in a way, for one, her power started to rival Buffy's. So she couldn't just be a sidekick anymore. She had to be more like a partner in conflict. And as such, Joss Whedon then had to start getting his writing team to have her go down some dark places to emphasize that she wasn't just there to bolster the hero, she also had to have her own presence. So that was a pretty interesting interpretation of the whole dynamic of sidekicks, I thought. But then you had Xander, who you've always, he's the one guy that always teetered on the edge of being useless. And they even played with that a couple of times in some of the episodes. But what's funny is he started to find his own voice too by going in the other direction. He started to become more of the normal person who is living in the supernatural world, but that didn't diminish him. If anything, that elevated him to a place of almost like he was the one guy in the show that everybody could count on for real to not be stupidly powerful or to accidentally bite somebody. I mean, he was a carpenter by the time the show was over, but nobody was like, that's stupid. They were like, oh, thank God, finally somebody can actually make sense of this world they're living in. I mean, he had a real purpose. And then Joss Whedon did the same thing with Angel, but not the same. He gave him Angel's sidekicks, but they had a real reason to be there. So the ones I think about in particular are Cordelia, who started out in Buffy as this really flighty kind of, I'm here to be mean to all the good guys and occasionally kill a vampire just to prove that I'm not horrible. But when she started out on Angel, her dynamic changed. She was no longer flighty. She had power, but she also had this sense of, I live in the world and I don't take it so seriously, which was perfect for Angel, because Angel was about, I take everything seriously. I can't help but wear black all the time. So you had to have someone who could be like, actually, California's kind of a cool place to live sometimes. And then you had, you start out with Doyle, who died pretty soon. And then you got Wesley, who was another perfect foil for Angel, because Wesley was the one who knew stuff, but was also not terribly strong. And Angel was the guy who was strong, But because he lived in a basement all the time, he didn't really know very much. So Wesley suddenly had real value. And you had this triple threat of a really strong character who led the show, but two sidekicks that were not useless, and in fact, grounded Angel to the point where he was able to actually be a hero and not just either a recluse or the guy who was just eventually going to fall off the wagon and just start eating people again. So, but what's funny too is, and I've talked too much, but each of those sidekicks were so great because they went somewhere. And I even had problems with that in the Star Trek shows, iterations. Too often, where the characters ended in the series was too close to where they started.
Right.
And the best thing about Joss Whedon's characters is he refuses to leave them where they're at. And as such, he gets some tremendous stories out of them and some tremendous character growth. Like Wesley started out as a joke, basically. He wore leather because he wanted to be like Angel, and he tried to carry a crossbow, and he kept, shooting things by mistake. And at the end, you remember the episode when they're going against this big demon, and Wesley pulls out these twin 45s like he's in a John Woo movie, and we're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Yeah, I could talk forever about those guys, but I don't know. Just if my goal is as a storyteller is if I'm going to have sidekicks, they have to be there for a reason, and not just to elevate the hero or to reveal more of the hero. Because eventually they start to seem less like characters and more like props, and props are boring. That's a reason why props don't talk. They're there to just sit there. You don't want that from characters. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we touched on this a little at the beginning about the evolution of what readers or viewers expect. And while 70 years ago, okay, they can just be a character there. And I mean, Lois Lane can be in trouble every episode of 1940s Superman. That doesn't fly anymore, and you can't. No one will tolerate a pointless character in any iteration, whether it's comic book or movie or a novel. And it's kind of hard to do that when you're writing. I don't know how you can get a book written like that and put a useless character in there, but but yeah, people won't tolerate it. They're like, what is this? What's the purpose of this? And they have to have depth and dimension. And you're right, growth even as a secondary character, if that's even what they are, because like in Buffy, they're all fleshed out enough that they've got a lot of the story on their own. And Tim was talking about Game of Thrones and how it's who's the lead, lead, and all these storylines that you want to follow. It's an interesting evolution, and I don't think people can. Dean talked about if we're going to do like a obviously retro throwback, sure, go for it. But it doesn't fly anymore to let somebody just be there and be a prop.
Yeah, if anything, if you're going to do a retro story, you would draw attention to the fact that the person is two-dimensional, and you would make a joke out of it, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Well,
right.
Even Spider-Man, his buddy kind of I want to be the guy in the chair, right? He kind of makes a crack about I'm not going to be the superhero. I want to be your backup, and that's it's kind of...
Well, what Brent? I'd be curious about your take on, because you're very knowledgeable about supernatural television shows, obviously. What about these television shows, Supernatural? Who's the sidekick and who's the leading character?
Ooh.
You mean of the two brothers?
Yeah.
Oh. I don't think either one of them could be a sidekick until Castiel comes along, and then he can be a sidekick.
Yeah.
Because, and in fact, that that may well be why Castiel came onto the show.
Yeah.
Is because you had two guys that had to share the narrative, and they both were, great characters that only got more and more fleshed out, and frankly, this mythology just continued to grow and snowball to the point where probably everyone was like, we don't even know what's going on anymore, but let's keep making episodes. Yeah.
Just have fun. Just have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first 5 seasons are arguably, a little bit more should we say genuine, or they resonate a little bit more as genuine characters rather than sort of almost parodies of themselves as it got later on. But that it's hard to sustain a series past 5 seasons, I think, just in general. But I really appreciated their relationship, how it changed, the relationship to the father. And again, it's almost like what we were talking about earlier with Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. It's like they're almost sidekicks to their commitments. Dean wants to be his dad so badly that he's a sidekick to his dad.
Yeah.
He just wants to re-embody his idealization of his father. And Sam's all like, you got to look at him as a real human being. He's not that great. Sam just wants to get emotional and have a sad piano playing behind. That's okay too. But no, I found it interesting. But I'd also love to get your take on, because I asked Scott this earlier. Tony and Steve, are they sidekicks? Are they? I mean, they're obviously, friends or competitors or partners, depending on the storyline. But which one is more of a sidekick?
I'd say, see, I think a sidekick serves a purpose, and like I said earlier, a good sidekick has his or her own story.
Yeah.
But going back to Buffy, there's never going to be a Xander series. He's just not interesting enough.
Right.
And if they really wanted to, he would have to develop something really singular about himself, which would then justify him getting into the big chair, frankly. So, like when you look at Captain America Civil War, I mean, they should have called it Captain America Iron Man, because neither one of them was subservient to the other in terms of, narrative heft. If I think about sidekicks for the both of them, I would say, frankly, Falcon is Cap's sidekick. And the reason is because, sorry, Falcon fans, we just don't care about him as much. Right. He's there for a reason. And frankly, the reason is to make Cap look better. And he did have an arc, and it was interesting. And I will try hard not to give spoilers to Falcon Winter Soldier. But that show is very much a tangible story of Falcon getting out from under Steve Rogers' shadow. He is, that would be if Xander got his own show from the Buffyverse. Only in this case, Falcon is realizing Steve is gone and he has to do something. He can't be a sidekick anymore. What's funny is Falcon Winter Soldier is about two sidekicks who are realizing their main character is gone, and what are they going to do? In a literal sense, what are we going to do? Our main event is gone, and we're two sidekicks. What are we going to do? In a meta sense, that's exactly what that show is about. And Iron Man, Tony Stark had Pepper, he had Happy, but there's absolutely no way you would be terribly interested in a movie about Pepper Potts. I mean, what does she do all day? She goes to business meetings, and then what does Happy do? He gets lost in the wine cellar for like an entire half of the movie. I mean, that's kind of boring, or he falls in love with Aunt May or whatever. I don't know what he's doing these days, but that's cool. But what you really want to do is you want to get back to Tony Stark. And that's, I guess, how you tell the difference between a character and a sidekick.
And a sidekick. And gosh, you just gave me this idea. I have to throw this in. I felt the same way when you just said nobody wants to see a TV show about Happy and Pepper and what they're doing. I felt that way about Gotham. I mean, sorry, Gotham fans, but it's like, is Batman in the show? No. Okay, I'm out. I mean, it's like, you know, I mean, it's like, I don't care.
Exactly.
I don't care about the peripheral characters around Batman. Just, you know, it's about Batman or it's not. But that was just me. You know, to me, that was a show about sidekicks, and I didn't care. So maybe I missed something good, though. I mean, I'm open to the fact that I may have missed some things.
I've heard people say they loved that show. I tried it. I couldn't get into it for that exact reason. I'm like,
correct.
So Batman is like a 10-year-old kid. How is that interesting? But
I couldn't watch it very, very far into it either.
No.
Well,
no.
What I've heard was, I guess the villains really took off, but already you're losing me because I'm like, so you're watching a show about a hero, but the hero is too boring to really sustain it, so they have to go in the direction of the villains. Sounds like a terrible idea.
I know, right? Let's do a show about Happy and what he does all day. Is Iron Man going to ever be in it? Well, no. Right. I mean, he'll make a cameo every now and then. You're like,
yeah, we can put
anybody, guys.
So.
Yeah.
I
Sidekicks ultimately have to develop, and they, like you said, Xander would have to be very developed to carry a show.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, sidekicks don't work in today's storytelling, I guess. Is it fair to say we're starting to reach that conclusion? Anybody?
Yeah, I think so. Because I was, I asked earlier, was thinking about even like indie arcs where we get a bunch of new characters every year. If anyone's actually introduced a new sidekick, and one did jog in my mind, which was Margaret from Curse Words, which is a comic about wizards in modern day New York, and Margaret is a psychic. She is a talking koala for no apparent reason. She kind of serves there as the moral sidekick to the main character, Wizard, who he fits the archetype of the evil wizard who came from a parallel dimension to conquer. And then he had a hot dog at Research Stadium and decided, know what, I'm going to let it sit for 2 more days. And then just end up assimilating into Earth Customs. And Margaret is the, like, no, if you want to be, like, a normal Earth person, this is what you got to do. But she serves that purpose beyond that, and eventually she ends up becoming her own powerful magical being and evolves beyond just being the sidekick. So even in that case, the most recent new sidekick I can think of, she evolves beyond a traditional sidekick trope.
Now, there is when you put the sidekick as the main character and as a storyteller. So has anyone seen What We Do in the Shadows?
Oh yes,
no.
Yes.
And
the movie or the show? The show. I've only seen the show. I have not seen the show,
and so I've only seen a few episodes, but it follows their non-vampire like.
It's their best friend. Yeah,
I was wondering if that's what you're talking about. Yeah, that's a crazy show.
It's stupidly hilarious from what I've watched so far, and I mean, he's the uninteresting. He's not a vampire. He doesn't have powers. So I mean, it's just a twist on it, though. I don't know if it's a great example, but it's pretty hilarious, and he's the uninteresting. But of course, you know what he has to do. His story is interesting, and I'm maybe 4 or 5 episodes into it. I watch it rarely, so it's pretty hilarious. What's the director? He directed
Taika Waititi is probably
he's hilarious. Yes,
yeah. He was in the movie. So.
Have you seen Jojo Rabbit? Has anyone seen that?
Not yet. It's on my list.
Laughed my face off with that one. That was just the opening, just the whole. It's gold. Jojo Rabbit. Gold.
The opening to Thor Ragnarok made me laugh.
Oh yes, I forgot it. Yeah,
the opening sequence, and you're busting out laughing. You're like, this is a comedy, and I love this.
Yeah,
so we hilarious. Matt Damon to play Chris Hemsworth for like a minute.
yeah, right.
No, he was Loki.
Oh yeah, you're right.
That
Yes,
is right.
yes.
That's right, Loki. Yeah.
That was so genius. Yeah, that was awesome.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. That was pretty much exactly what the Thor franchise needed, I think.
Yeah.
So we're getting towards the last few minutes of our show here. We can divert. I will allow everybody to will go off away from the topic at hand. What's good? What's on the horizon? Movies? What are you excited about? Theaters are opening up. What's coming to television? This Memorial Day weekend. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna totally blank on it. Jim from The Office, John Krasinski's movie, the sequel, the scary silent.
Oh, Quiet Place 2?
Quiet Place 2.
Quiet Place 2.
Shout
Are
out
you
to
serious?
my buddy Kyle. He's an extra in it. It was filmed around here, around
Awesome.
north of Batavia, west of Batavia, out on the Grand Island Bridge and stuff. So we give him a hard time because his car is featured more prominently than him. So they really just want his car and not him. We have no idea if he's in it, but his car is in the trailer. And
That's
actually, I
fine.
say his car. We just bought it for my son. So my son's car is famous. That's my other claim to fame. The 03 gold Honda Accord. That's coming out this weekend. So, or not Memorial Day weekend. So we're gonna go try to see that. We're gonna try to take the car. I just have to get it registered. And in New York, you have to put your paperwork in a Dropbox and hope the DMV handles it within a month. So that's the way it works. That's the way it works right now. You put a blank check with it. Isn't that great?
You put a blank check.
You really do.
Yeah.
You put a blank check with all your paperwork, and they call you and tell you, we're writing this amount on the check. And you say, okay.
What?
You can't go into the DMVs.
That's how you guys vote too, right?
Not even. Anyways, so that's a movie on my horizon. Quiet Place 2. I like the first one. There are major pitfalls to that whole storyline that I could discuss ad nauseum. But if you remove good portions of your brain and just enjoy the movie.
Very much like Godzilla versus
That's my weekend as removing my brain to watch Khan and Mortal Kombat.
Yep.
How was Mortal Kombat? I haven't seen it. Was Mortal Kombat what I think it would be? I mean,
has anyone seen it?
I hadn't seen it yet.
That's my
I
weekend
finally saw Godzilla versus Kong last weekend. So,
what'd you think, Brent?
it was a riveting piece of cinema, like The Godfather, except hardly at all. But you know what? It was loud. It was a loud movie, and I saw it in the theater, and so I was happy. That was pretty much all I wanted.
Yep.
Didn't it take you back to being a kid though, and watching the Saturday afternoon, Godzilla or King Kong movie? I mean, it just turned me into a 14-year-old immediately because there was no realism to it. I'm like, okay, I'm buying into the complete fantasy of this, and just have fun and see where it goes. I mean, because
yeah, that's the thing you're talking about in theory. Is if as a writer you get one big buy-in burr page and then one giant buy-in burr story. If you make your entire story the buy-in, it works again.
Happened. Never mind. Godzilla. It's got. There's no way they could. It was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've got. I mean, they tell you in screenwriting, don't input too much magic, different kinds of magic into the story, or else it'll derail the viewer. But really, Godzilla versus Kong, they started that way. There's a middle, like, the Earth is hollow now. Did you know? Yeah, it's been hollow all this time. Let's go down there. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to go down there and get back out.
And get back.
Yeah.
We need to get to Hong Kong.
All you got to do is
But there's
climb down a
tunnel
ladder and you can get there.
That'll take us there. How did that get there?
Did you guys know there was a ladder that took you to the middle of the earth and you could just climb down it and get down in there? Yeah, that's
the idea. Is the writer
Jules Verne told us about it.
Exactly. The audience thinks you're going to get on the train tracks and like, no, we don't need those. Just right out. I'm going to tell you, don't step on that train. We're rocking over there.
Haley, what about you? Anything interesting on the horizon? Anything you were looking forward to? Anything you're watching? reading. I'm putting everybody on the spot here.
I don't even know.
She doesn't even know.
I am starting to like catch up to, well, not really, but because like all you guys have so much like knowledge of mainstream comics, and I'm just like screwed over my head. But I have I don't know if any of you guys use Hoopla, which is like you use your library card and can like
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
I
Yep.
have a lot of comics on there, so
Yeah.
I've been like reading some, so I'm like, okay. I'm starting to like
Don't feel bad. I'm this guy.
Yeah.
Whoa, I got that.
I should have had it in front of me. Dan gave so I mentioned Alex Ross, and his art is incredible. So has anyone read Marvel's? Yeah, I've never read it.
I have the originals.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, please don't come and burn my house down. I don't know where it is in the collection.
Yeah, I just started like page 1. Marvel's follows a reporter who reports on the superheroes and in real time from the 40s through so that's on my to read list. But also Alex Ross's art, I absolutely love it. I'm jealous. I wish I could art like that. So and then Tommy,
check this out, Scotty.
Look.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah. Yep.
This one is particularly cool. The hardback version.
Yeah.
With the art is just.
It's stunning. It's stunning. His art is incredible. It's so iconic. I have the cover with Marvel's with people behind it, like the letters have the images.
It's just a little, just to get a little envy going there. Just the signature.
Whoa! Look at that.
Just a little. Yeah. It happens. Go to San Diego enough times, you gotta do that. Anyway.
A friend of mine was he's cleaning out all his comic books too, so I was going through his long boxes finding what I wanted to read. And my kids, my daughter's totally into manga, so I can't support that habit. At $9.95 a pop. So I grabbed a stack of classic 70s and 80s comics for my kids to read, and they're pretty happy about that. So
nice. The thing with manga though is comics are like $4.95 now for a mainstream one, but with a manga, you buy them in volumes, so you're getting like
you get a bunch of stores.
Yeah, you're getting like 6 to 7 issues, and if you can get like Shonen Jump, which case they get like one issue of every thing that's out right now for about the price of a comic. It's
yeah.
Or you can do what Haley does and just look at it on Hoopla, and then you don't spend jack squat.
See,
there you go.
I'm torn
because but I can read all these and be like, okay, that was
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Also, no buyer's remorse. Then you're good.
My daughter is not been a avid reader. She likes books and stuff like that, but now she's just devouring books. So I don't know. I'm torn. Like, there's something about giving her books to read. Because I adhere, or I think Lemony Snicket said, "Never trust a man who doesn't bring a book with him," or something like that. So I always tell my kids, take a book, because you never know when you need to read something. But yeah, I can't afford all the manga. And we just went and I took them to the theater to watch Demon Slayer.
Oh yeah.
I'm clueless. I'm an old dad on that. Clueless. So they clued me in on what the movie was about, and okay. And I learned that wisteria keeps the demons away.
Yes.
And that was that. So
that's a solid story, but it requires like 2 years of buy-in beforehand.
Yep. And they've been.
Oh, that sells itself.
Exactly. Again, that's like if you're taking someone to watch just, maybe not the best example, but I guess either Matrix number 3, or I guess even if you're taking them to go see like Return of the King, and they're like, wait, who are these people? Why are they saying that he was dead?
What?
Right. easiest mangas that I just walked in completely cold and completely knew it, even though it had a bunch of buy-in before. It was Blood, the Last Vampire. You guys seen that? You know that one, Tim?
A little bit. I have a friend who's super into vampire anime and manga, so.
It's just the typical. It's basically Buffy in Japan.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
But a lot more vicious, as manga tends to be. Akira, though, Akira. When I first saw that, man, I was like, wow, they drew a lot of detail. It's just because usually in Western animation, they're trying to simplify because it's easier to animate. But the detail just was absolutely stunning.
Akira's also from that weird era where everything was hyper detailed, and when you watch anything, you're like, did the artists spend their entire lives on this? Frame? Yeah.
Same thing with Ghost in the Shell. One, you just,
wow.
Ghost in the Shell, right?
Yeah.
Okay, hey folks, we've surpassed the 11 o'clock hour here on the East Coast. I'm gonna start saying goodnight. So we all agree that we are pro Sidekick as long as they serve a purpose, as long as they are well-rounded and developed, and they complement and similarly contrast the hero. Yes? Have I is good?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they get beat up a lot.
And they get and they occasionally get tied to the railroad tracks.
And they gotta get saved.
They've got the buzz saw about to chop them half with a laser beam. Every once in a while, they do serve that purpose, and that's very useful. And there's someone for our hero to have a cup of coffee with and discuss matters of the heart. So we are pro Sidekick. Okay, I'm going to say goodnight, folks. Hey, everybody out there, thank you for watching. Thank you to Daytona Beach Comic Book Convention, September 18th and 19th. Be there, everybody. Thank you to the History List and historycamp.org for sponsoring our shows. And don't forget, we have a podcast. We have a Sunday night show. We have a website. We have social media sites. Go like, share, follow, subscribe. And don't forget, May 13th, our next Kickstarter campaign is happening. We have 2 titles on the way. We want you all to be there. Thank you for supporting our past Kickstarter campaigns. Thank you for watching these shows. Throw some comments on there. Even if it's after the fact, we will try our best to respond to them. We have Tim TK, Agro Bacon. We got Dean Zachary. We got Brent Larson. We got Tommy Flormonti. We got Haley Martin. We are all very thankful that you have joined us tonight. We'd love if you hopped over, searched our names, and found us on the socials and liked us and did all those good things. We have more stories coming from each of us, from our story writing skills and our arting skills, and we will continue to grow the Silverline world. This has been Wednesday Wham. Tune in on Sunday for Silverline Sunday. Those guys are not as cool as we are, but they are okay. All right. I think that's a wrap, folks. So before I go, always remember to make mine a Silverline. All right. Good night, everybody.
Silverline.